Welcome to our YouTube channel RCG Ventures, dedicated to architecture students and young professionals. Today, I am in San Jose in the Bay Area with a very special guest, Prahallad Badami. Architect Prahallad is from India. He has done his Bachelor of Architecture from India and has come to the USA for higher education. I think all of you would be interested to know his journey from India to the USA. So, why wait? Let's dive right into it.
Thank you for having me.
So, welcome, Prahallad. Could you tell us briefly about your education in India as well as in the USA, especially touch upon architecture part?
Sure. I started pursuing my bachelor's in architecture in 2009, went on to 2014, and this was back in Bangalore. And post that, I worked for 3 years. I did have an idea to pursue further education and come back to the US. I was an exchange student here, so I always thought that I would be back here for higher education. And during those 3 years, I worked in the architecture space and also got a chance to work on urban planning. I worked on Smart City Trivandrum. That was a good exposure, and that's how I grew my interest in urban planning. Once I had my mind set on that, I decided to pursue both masters in architecture and urban planning. And fortunately, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, they gave me a dual degree entry. I had to spend about 6 semesters working on both degrees. And yeah, that's how I came to be in the Midwest, pursuing both masters. And since then, after graduation, I've been working mostly in the planning sphere. And sometime down the line, I would like to include design as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
That's wonderful. Can you tell us briefly about your internships in India as well as in the USA?
Sure. So I think when it came to internship during my batch, they, I think it was AICT that had decided that it'll be 1 year of internship,
Oh,
2 semesters, which was a big plus. Previously, it used to be just 1 semester.
yeah.
So because of that, I got to explore internship at 2 firms. One was in Bangalore, and that is something that I sought out. And my father wanted me to go work with his former boss, and because of that, I got a chance to go to Chandigarh. Both were different experiences, and that also gave me a lot of exposure. When it came to internships for architecture in the US, I somehow got lucky that I got a job at the University of Illinois Facilities and Services. And starting that job, I just continued it after the first semester. So I never really sought out internships. I guess there are pluses and minuses to that. I would probably have had more exposure in the architecture field in the US had I pursued internships, specifically in firms. But with the University of Illinois Facilities and Services, I got this opportunity to explore planning because I had never been in a planning position. And since I had to get some of that experience in, because eventually I would be out in the job market trying to look for a position, yeah, I stuck with that and I continued in that position for the rest of my time at the university. So that turned out into concurrent study and work because as F1 students, we are only allowed to work part-time, 20 hours a week, and that's probably how much I worked for the rest of the duration at my university.
So you mentioned going to some private firm in second phase of your training in India.
Yeah.
Where did you go? Where did you take your training?
I went to Chandigarh. I went to work at S.D. Sharma and Associates. I worked with Sangeet sir and S.D. Sharma sir, and which was a grand experience. Getting to listen to S.D. Sharma sir's stories about his days in architecture, and getting to listen to Sangeet sir's probable learnings over time. Yeah, Chandigarh was a good experience.
That's great. Okay. Can you tell us what inspired you to pursue higher education in the USA after completing your Bachelor of Architecture in India?
Yeah. When I ventured into planning sphere back in India with Smart City Trivandrum, um, it was I was a very minute part of it, but I saw the contrast between how we dealt with design in architecture, with it being site specific, and planning where you are taking a macro view of things. And that is basically what drew me in. I believed, and I still do, that we can have more of a positive effect on things when we explore planning in the right way. And I think the Indian Institute of Urban Planners was set up just a few years ago, so things were picking up, but wasn't entirely full-fledged. So I think that's what drove me towards exploring it. I'd definitely like to give back, and let's see how my career trajectory goes. But yeah, that's how I got into planning.
So you had mentioned earlier you had come as an exchange student to USA. So maybe that is what drew you to USA, or
Probably. I think the main factor was in my head was language. That might have been a naive view to begin with, but since I'm comfortable with English, I just thought, and I had been in this space and I liked the Midwest. Like, why not do it instead of trying to learn another language and probably go to Europe or some other location? And I didn't have a specific location in mind within this country, but I was willing to go to any university that would offer me a dual degree because I wanted to do it in one shot.
okay.
And yeah, exploring Chicago's architecture was probably one of the inspirational factors that got me into it. I used to look at my dad's drawings as a kid. Anyway, he's also an architect, and I was always interested in it, and opening my eyes to whatever Chicago had to offer, especially as a 16-year-old kid. Yeah, that probably played a part in it as well.
Yeah. So language and fascination for
Sure, yeah,
something
yeah,
better
yeah.
brought you to USA.
Chicago still stays my favorite city in the country.
Okay.
So, I love the architecture there.
So, what happens that many students, while they are considering studying abroad, they wonder about application process. So, if you can tell them what sort of exams or standardized tests did you take to get admission to universities in US,
Sure.
it would be a great help to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for graduate studies, many universities prefer that students take up GRE. I forget the full form of that examination. I believe it's graduate something.
I think
Yeah.
students know about
Anyway,
GRE and
it's-
GMAT.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for non-business courses, GRE is the way to go. Some schools don't even require it, but
Yeah.
many schools do. So that's one of the exams that's on there, and because of the visa requirements and the language skills that are required according to the U.S. Department of State, you need to take up TOEFL, which is test of an English as foreign language. And if you particularly don't meet certain thresholds, they will have you take up some additional classes when you get into the country. So these are the two basic exams you need to take up. But apart from this, it all comes down to how you take up each specific application process, because you need to apply to each specific college, and they have their own requirements. At the end of the day, they're trying to evaluate you as much as possible, and they're trying to get to know the complete stranger, because they need to evaluate the candidacy of the student. So this will involve essays, essay writing, and filling up questionnaires, and talking about where you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years, how you're going to use your degree, why you want to pursue the degree. So all of these are factored in. And this is something that the universities want to know. They also want to know what your previous achievements are. And it's good that you have those achievements or you put it out there, because that will help you in getting scholarships, assistantships, and bringing down the tuition fee, and overall just getting some perks out of this education, graduate education process. But yeah, so we have the two exams, and then we have the specific application processes that you need to follow. Normally, they have a fee associated with each application. It varies. I think when I did that, it was somewhere between $60 to $100 for each application. So it is important that you budget the amount that you have, and that you have evaluate your schools that you want to go to in a particular way, where you have a couple of universities you're applying to where you're reaching for the stars. You will know, because as a candidate you need to be self-aware, and then after those couple of schools you have you have other schools kind of in the mid-range, not the safe schools, but ones you think you'll probably get in, whose programs you like, and then you have a couple of safe schools. So overall you'll be sending out about 6 to 8 applications. I think I did about 8, if I'm not wrong, and I got into 5 or 6. And this is the only university that gave me a concurrent degree. So it was an easy choice. Yeah.
I think, yeah, you have actually I was going to ask you about, how you walk through various universities, so you have already covered that. So maybe you can tell us, once you arrived in the USA as international student, what were the initial challenges you faced when you landed here?
Primarily the first challenge was probably living with roommates, because I'd never lived with roommates. Chandigarh was one stint where I did have roommates, but that was only for 6 months. My college was close to my house. I never really had to move places for anything. But just to handle this situation better, I got something called a room specific lease instead of an apartment lease. So you, as a student, you can choose just to have the lease assigned to your room, which I'm a kind of a cleanliness freak, so I want things to be clean. So this helped a lot. And one of the other challenges I had was, well, cooking, and this is all non-academic, but yeah, I had to learn cooking because you're on your own. But apart from that, it was pretty smooth sailing. There was a lot of work involved, but I was ready for it. I was in that mindset. I was working till I landed in the US as well, so there was no problem with being diligent, and that definitely helped me. I would suggest that students who are coming in be open to all sorts of experiences, come with an open mind, and yeah, just be ready to work hard and work smart. Not necessarily slog, but just take up the things you need to take up to further your career, and not back away from things. So yeah, I don't think I had any major challenges to speak of. But then again, it is also the system that helps you, right? I have a supporting family, so I didn't have to think of things back home. I had friends who were supporting me, and yeah, all in all, it was a great experience. But you definitely need this would probably be very different for each person. But yeah, I think I was lucky to have it easy.
So you did your Bachelor of Architecture, finished it in 2014. And then came here in 2018. 17.
Yes.
So you worked for 3 years in India. You think that helps in building your resume for applying to universities if you have little bit of work experience?
Definitely,
is that so?
Definitely. Especially in terms of masters in architecture, because they are looking at your portfolio, and the better content you have to show these universities to evaluate as a candidate, the better it is for you. So definitely helps. And for me, it helped me not only in presenting more work, it helped me in letting them know why I'm doing what I was trying to do, why I was trying to get both degrees. And those essays, they go through it in detail, and it matters a lot. It is not just a couple of pages you write and it's just filed as part of the application. They definitely go through it word for word, and not just one people. There's an entire panel that goes through it, and they go through different rounds of selection process. So it is very important that all of these materials are in top shape, and you should have read it, proofed it, redrafted stuff, shown it to a whole lot of people in the academic arena and in the professional arena, and that is what helps in the candidacy. One thing I did forget to mention is most of these application processes, they involve getting letters of recommendation, either from your former professors or people you're working with, colleagues or your managers. All of this is still part of the process. So yeah, that also feeds into the application process.
Okay. We all know that system in USA is little different. Here networking matters a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
So what all you did to do networking here, since it was I know you came here as an exchange student, but that was a very small period. So
Yeah,
what
and-
all you did to get a good networking, because ultimately that lands you the job.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Colleges do have career fairs where you can definitely network and meet the team members from different companies, and that is one way of doing it. Students can always connect on LinkedIn. I would recommend that students connect with their professors and their peers, and then you get to build these relationships. Once you're out there and they know what your interests are, people sometimes seek you out if you have if your interests align. For me, since I was working at a university body with university filling out facilities and services, that expanded my network quite a lot. And I was in the GIS department as well, and I've grown to really, really like GIS as a field. So I mostly dealt with and interacted with people in this field, so that helped me better my network. But sometimes there are exceptions to these things. I graduated just before COVID hit.
Oh.
So during my job search process, everything had to happen online. My networking was happening online. One good thing I did was attend a happy hour session. So it was 400 urban planners in the US on one Zoom call. And this was part of the American Planning Association's happy hour, which happens, I think, once every 6 months. I was lucky to be there, or lucky to find out that I had to be there. That's where I met my company CEO, and that's how we connected. So you never know where opportunities will arise. So again, this is again part of getting yourself out there, not saying no to opportunities, not hold yourself back. Yeah, so since that day, it's been a whole different story, and that's how I got my first job. So yeah, again, going back to that recommendation, just be out there, seek your thing out, and never say no to experiences.
One thing I forgot to ask you, when you write your paper while applying to various universities, do they include only activities related to architecture or extracurricular, like, you have done some journalism, or maybe you are a good sports person, so you have to include those two in your application?
Yeah, most definitely. They're definitely looking for non-academic stuff, and that is how you stand out, especially when it comes to these assistantships, tuition assistants, and research assistantships as well. For me, I was the sending coordinator for American Field Services. That was the exchange program I was part of. So after I came back to India, I wanted to give back, so I became a sending coordinator, and I was in charge of sending students abroad on these scholarships and evaluating their candidacies. So that was definitely one of the primary things on my resume, and it also went into my extracurriculars. and I was involved briefly with an organization called Janagraha, which does urban forestation and city planning activities. So that also went in there. So it's very important to have these as part of your resume. And not only these, what awards you won. They may be design awards, they may be in some other competition. So those also help. If you made the honor roll at your college, that'll also definitely help. And this is all about telling your story to a bunch of people who don't know you at all. So this is that window you have to make an impression, and for them and make them give you the best shot you have. So yeah, you need to put it out there, definitely.
So, I mean, lot of work there in India as well as lot of work in the USA. Is that so? I mean, yes, you work there
Yeah.
quite hard so that you fulfill the requirements of USA universities, and as an international student,
Sure.
you had to work here.
Yeah.
So, since you were working so hard, how did you achieve your work-life balance then?
You're talking about the university?
Yeah.
Oh, it was tough. So I was, on an average, I took about 18 credits every semester.
Okay.
And I worked on an average 16 hours per week. So it was pretty tight. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty tight. This was a unique situation for me because there's very few people who do concurrent programs, especially with architecture and urban planning. Normally, people get into architecture and construction management or architecture and structural engineering, and they are more streamlined as programs. With architecture and urban planning, both courses have their core subjects, so you need to satisfy those, and then you probably will take your electives. The way the program worked is there was pretty much no room for me to take electives because I was trying to fulfill the prerequisites of both programs. So it was pretty tight, but it was all about staying on schedule. Maintaining your good health goes a long way because you miss one day of class or you miss one day of work, it just adds on, and there's a ripple effect. So yeah, you need to be diligent with what you do. You need to be regular. You need to stay on top of your schedule, and also party in a responsible manner. Not spend too much time on that, or you need to have fun, but you can look at your calendar and figure out how much time you can spend on things, and that's mostly how I did it. Calendar was and is still my best friend, and that is partly how I achieve my efficiency.
So you have to work, you have to be sensible,
Yes.
and you can enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once you do have the passion to do it and you're focused, I think that will definitely get you there. No issues.
There must be some differences education-wise, culture-wise between the two countries. So
Definitely,
did
yeah.
you feel that difference? What kind of differences are there?
Yeah, most definitely. There's the studios in the architecture program are far more relaxed, but require a lot more work. You get very few instructions. It's very open-ended. You have a whole lot of freedom to do whatever you want. So when things are that open-ended, you need to limit yourself in certain ways because you have a set time where you need to achieve the design that you're supposed to achieve. So it's all about self-regulation, right? And since the architecture program at the UFI was preparing professionals mostly for the Chicago area, because that's how the program is designed, you are doing teamwork. Sometimes you just there's one person in your team, sometimes there are 5 to 6. It takes away your ego. You learn to become a team player, and especially with architects, you do see that they tend to favor their designs and their manners, and in this program or in such an atmosphere, you learn to kind of unlearn that and then relearn some of the things. So that really helps because in the professional world, that's what matters. So they do a great job of that, no doubt about it. Sometimes there's a drawback when team interests don't align with in terms of team members and their work styles and how they do it. I saw a lot of friction between international students and US students because you have different work cultures and you have the international contingent coming in with a different mindset. So probably universities can have some sort of orientation courses where the international students can ease in, especially in a program like architecture, because not all programs have these such long hours of teamwork. Not many programs have that. So maybe that would help, but I did see a lot of friction. So it's very important to be wise. It's very important to get things done, because when it comes to evaluation, the faculty don't really care what the issues are. It's about whether the work is done or not and the quality of the work that was involved. So yeah, that does happen.
So right now you are an urban planner. I know you have done dual degree in
Yeah.
masters in architecture as well as in urban planning. So urban planning is basically design and development of land. I mean, it's a broader field.
Right.
And since you have done your Bachelor of Architecture, Masters in Architecture, do you miss designing buildings?
I do. I very much do, and that's one of the reasons I want to include that going forward. With urban planning, and especially the role I am in, I mostly do geospatial analysis in terms of mapping and data analysis in terms of census statistics or emissions that come out of bus fleets in cities. Those are the examples. So I'm involved in an analytical role, and I definitely miss design because I'm trying to be creative, especially in terms with respect to stakeholder engagement and online feedback from cities and the public. But it's not the same creativity that is involved in design. So I definitely do miss it, and I am working towards including that going forward.
Okay.
But the positive effect I have seen urban planning have, and the range it has, and again, going back to the macro scale that is involved in it, definitely I'm going to stick with planning. That is definitely going to be the primary. It's just going to differ for people. That's completely fine. But I mostly work on zero emission transition plans where we're trying to convert city fleets that use diesel and biodiesel buses to electric and hydrogen to bring down emissions. Or we're looking at how cities will be affected by heat and flooding going down the line. So those things definitely do interest me. But yeah, definitely want design included as part of my work life.
So it seems to me you plan to continue in urban planning. I mean, yes, you said architecture can be introduced later. So what are your long-term goals in urban planning?
It's a loaded question. I don't think I have clarity on where I would be in the next 2 or 3 decades, but I do have some clarity on where I'll be in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
I am looking at being involved in kind of the same role I am in, or at least in the same sphere. I'm going to work on climate mitigation and adaptation processes. That's where my interest lies, and mostly be involved in transportation planning and environmental planning. But I also want to move up the career ladder in my life. I'm on track to be a project manager at my company, and that's a short-term goal. I do have plans of pursuing PhD at some point while working in a position. Let's see how that pans out. But it would ideally be in economics, where I'm trying to see how economics relates to planning and design when it comes to the contrast that exists between global north and global south. I have a lot of interest in geopolitics and how there's a hegemony that exists where in the global north, mainly Western Europe and North America, and how developing economies face issues because of that, both the governments and the public. So probably will transition to in that direction as well. But yeah, for the next 5 years though, I want to do what I want to continue doing what I'm doing and build on it. And maybe when I reach a level of saturation, make the switch or work towards that switch. That is what it is now. Let's see how. Ask me this question 5 years later, and probably I'll have another problem.
Sure, we'll do that. So finally, any message for our students in India?
Yeah. Well, apart from as I mentioned, being open to experiences, and starting the application process early on, doing your research with what colleges you would like, what programs you would like, how the faculty are, how the students are, and what a normal day as a student looks like. All of these need to be researched. There are enough forums online that will give you this information. You can connect with your peers that have already done or been through this process, especially in your cities, each respective city, and take feedback from them and include them in this process. I would recommend that you start with the application process probably 6 to 8 months, or maybe if you have time, a year before. It gets tricky when you're working and you come back from work, from your work day, and then you continue with the application process. It takes a while. So a year before, I think is a great time to start. Do your research, and when you feel confident enough, and you streamline your list of institutions, go for the application process. All of these universities have very strict deadlines with their applications, so yeah, just know the dates, and then once you're there, back to not being close to experiences. Being diligent and being regular and having schedules definitely helps with efficiency. But yeah, that's mostly the message I put out there, and that's mostly what helped me as well. Yeah, hopefully good luck to them. It'll be great.
Thank you so much, Prahallad. Prahallad seems to be a very focused person, and I think what I gather from his talk is that one has to be very smart, very wise, and very, very focused and very open, I think, to interact with people to get all sorts of information. So this is an attempt from RCG Ventures to bring, some information about studying in the USA by talking to architect Prahallad Badami, and we are very glad that we could share his incredible journey from India to the USA. Thank you so much, Prahallad, and I am sure our aspiring students will definitely get benefited from your talk and listening to your incredible journey. So, cheers, friends. We see you soon with another such inspirational story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.